Yo, what is up guys? It's the Goblin and welcome back to another Call of Duty Modern Warfare video. In tonight's video, we're going to be talking about the best class setup, best perks and attachments for this new Holger-26, which is one of the two new free DLC weapons into Modern Warfare. If you guys want to see my best class setup for the Ram 7, I actually uploaded that one earlier today, so definitely go ahead and check that one out on my channel. Going to be talking about this weapon, showing off a nice gameplay, and just going over what makes this weapon strong and what is the best attachments to use on it. If you could drop a like on this thing, that would be absolutely incredible. Let's go ahead and go for 507 likes. If we could hit that, that would be amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and not already subscribed, and let's go ahead and break it down, get right into it. I really do appreciate everyone supporting, liking, subscribing, all that. It only takes a second, and it does mean the world to me. So let's talk about the Holger-26. This thing is just deadly, especially for taking out multiple enemies, and that is because you basically get a 100-round drum magazine with the reload time of an assault rifle, and I'm not even joking when I say this. I'm not even exaggerating at all. You guys can watch the gameplay here. I wasn't using, this is just with the default magazine, 100 rounds, and the default reload time. I don't even use sleight of hand on this class setup, and the reload time is basically just a boom, boom, and you also have 100 rounds. You're not having to do it very, very often, which frees up a lot of slots because you don't have to use anything under the ammo category, unless you're trying to turn this into like a 30-round G36 sort of AR, but for this setup, we're playing it more LMG fast-paced, so you don't have to use anything in that category. You don't have to use anything in the weapon perk category for sleight of hand, and it opens up a lot of strengths for this weapon. And I would say the main two weaknesses of this weapon would be the recoil, I guess you could say, because of the fact that it does have a decent amount of recoil, and even though I do have some attachments that go against that to sort of counter that. And the second weakness would be, of course, that it's an LMG. That is just means that it's going to handle kind of slow, and you're going to need to put certain different attachments on it to speed it up. That happens traditionally with an LMG. The strength of this weapon is that, number one, it's a DLC weapon, which when they do the DLC weapons for free available for everyone, they do make them really strong, and they have done the same thing this time because they want people to hop on, play with these weapons, rank them up, and of course to get the ultimate best class setup, you're going to have to rank these weapons up and have all the attachments available. Even if you get the gilded variant, I think it's 85 in the battle pass, that does have a decent class setup with it, but it still doesn't have everything available you need for a great setup. So what do I rock with as far as perks? Perk number one is going to go ahead and be EOD. EOD is just the way to go for perk one unless you want to go overkill with a shotgun. Perk number two, I go with Ghost. Honestly, with perk two, you can kind of mix it up with this one. You could rock with Ghost. Ghost is just straight up really, really strong. That's why I was using it. If the enemies have a UAV, you're able to take advantage of that quite easily and sort of turn their UAV into an advantage for their team, but a disadvantage for them versus you because they're not going to be expecting you as much unless they hear you coming with your footsteps or something like that. Other good perk twos would be Kill Chain. Could definitely work nice with this weapon to stack those streaks and just let them, I mean, the big air support goes ham in this game, whether you're playing Shoot House or whether you're playing Ground War. It just goes absolutely dumb big air support. So that's what I'd rock with as perk 2, but I rock with Ghost personally. And then perk number 3, I go with Battle Hardened. Personally, I don't, like, usually I go with Tune Up, but for the fact that on this weapon, you don't really need Dead Silence because you're not really rushing too much. You don't really need the ammo crates because honestly, you're just resupplying quite a bit and you're like off of enemies' dead bodies and stuff. And you also have so much ammo to start because it's an LMG. You don't really have to worry about that as much. So usually stopping power is the most helpful thing, but I mean, even with the stopping power, it's just an increase in damage, which I shouldn't say just an increase in damage because that is absolutely insane, but this weapon hits hard either way. With stopping power, of course, better than without, but either way, it hits hard, so I'm not in too much of a rush to get that, so that's why I run Battle Hardened as my perk 3. Also for the fact that if you're posted up with an LMG, sort of playing traditional LMG style, you have Battle Hardened, so they're not able to get to you with just flashing you out. As far as your secondary, I would rock with either the Desert Eagle or the 357. Even though that one was nerfed, it still is pretty nasty, and for a weapon that traditionally when you use a slower handling gun, you want to have something else that can handle enemies up close, which would be nice to have one of those pistols for. But with this thing, the way that we designed this class up, you don't even need too much for handling the enemies up close because this weapon can really do the work itself, especially with the hip fire as well. That you can see we have the 5MW laser, which impacts the hip fire. If you're not able to get your full aim down sights in, you can still be spraying people with hip fire and do absolute work. So Ghost or EOD, Ghost or Kill Chain. Personally, I go with Ghost. Battle Hardened as far as perk 3, and then I rock with the what do I rock with? I rock with the Claymore traditionally, and then I rock with the Stim Shot, which the Stim Shot is not as useful when you're not constantly tune up and supplying ammo crates to be restacking those, but personally I still like it, and you got to be more selective with it when you're not tune up with ammo crates, so don't spam Stim Shot, but in tight situations definitely use it, and it's a lot easier to use when you're not worried about reloading because you have a 100-round magazine. Let's go ahead and break down all these attachments attachments on this weapon, drop a like. Definitely give this weapon a go. It's really amazing. Smack a like, and yeah, I'll show you guys the attachments in the menu. Alright, what is up, guys? As you can see, here's my Holger-26 class setup, which, like I said, EOD, Ghost, and then Battle Harden. The reason I mix up Battle Harden for the tune-up, like I would probably usually use on a traditional perk setup like this, is because tune-up, I don't think it's most needed for this weapon. I mean, this thing has big damage. Stopping power, of course, is always helpful, but your ammunition, you also don't really run into too many problems with this weapon, and also dead silence, of course, isn't the most effective thing for rushing with an LMG, because this is an LMG at the end of the day, even though we convert it with, you can see how small it is after we put these attachments on it. So what is my favorite best class setup for this weapon? What have I been finding that works the best? Now, personally, I've been experimenting with this thing on all sorts of things, using the 30-round mag, which gives you ADS speed and movement speed, but gives up the 100-round magazine, which I think is very effective on this weapon. This is what I came down to as far as my best class setup for it as of right now, and this setup takes a weapon from like an LMG, and it keeps the good strength things of an LMG. The good strength things are the fact that there's 100 rounds of ammunition, the fact that this weapon has big damage, and the downsides of an LMG are usually recoil and handling and mobility. And I sort of put them all together to create this best class setup here. So it all starts with the no stock. Rocking the no stock, I give up aiming stability and recoil control for movement speed and ADS speed, which is the first decision to basically, your other option would be just to go with like a normal stock of an FSS infantry, but I like to go all in with the no stock here and convert this thing to a weapon that feels a little bit better on the handling for it, because traditionally LMGs, that's their downside. Even if you use something like a PKM, which is a most amazing, really good LMG, really effective to kill people, really good at recoil control, everything, but the handling just feels weak. And as you can see, look at the bottom left, the mobility on this class setup is through the roof, and this weapon is still very, very effective. So no stock to speed up the movement speed and ADS speed, and the big downside of that is it's going to add a little bit of recoil to your weapon. So to counteract that recoil, I use, as far as the muzzle, the compensator, which slows down your ADS speed a little bit more as well, but that's kind of expected. We're using an LMG here. We're not expecting this thing to be the get your gunny up quick class setup like you would have on a P90, and you get the recoil control, expels gases upward to aggressively fight muzzle climb, and the compensator, I find that this is what I've been getting my best games in with this weapon. It makes the recoil pattern go from sort of unpredictable kicking up to just become more of like a bounce pattern. That's what I've been experiencing the most when I've been experimenting around and using this class setup. It makes the recoil pattern feel like a bounce, and when I say a bounce, I don't mean like an MP5 or an AK-47 bounce. It's a little bit more of a bounce than that, but it still is a lot easier to control than it is just straight up vertical or kicking up into the left or up into the right recoil. So I love to rock that with the compensator to sort of make up for the no stock. Next is going to be the barrel. Now the barrel on this weapon, you have two choices, basically the same sort of stuff, right? One gives you ADS speed, it gives up bullet velocity. The other one gets you ADS speed and gives up bullet velocity, but also affects movement speed and recoil control. And with this one, I think it all comes down to, if you're still having trouble with this class setup with the recoil once you throw in the compensator, you could go with the ultralight barrel, but for me personally, I don't find that it's too, I find that it's worth it to have that little bit of a problem with the recoil being a bounce pattern, and it is sort of annoying, the muzzle bouncing up and down. It can make you miss some shots, so it does take some getting used to, and I would say that's a downside of this setup. But by adding on the Spitfire 8.98-inch barrel, this thing is just deadly, giving you even more ADS speed, more movement speed, and making this weapon feel like a normal weapon in this game, where it doesn't feel like an SMG when you, or not an SMG, an LMG. It does not feel like an LMG when you use this class setup. It feels more like just maybe like a heavy style assault rifle, but you get the benefit of having the LMG, which is 100 rounds in the magazine, which means you don't need to use the 30-round mag unless you're trying to convert this weapon to like a G36 or something, which does give you even more ADS and movement speed. But we've already got that coming from two different sources here, so we don't need it from the magazine, and we don't need sleight of hand because of the fact that this weapon has literally 100 rounds before you have to reload. It has basically a drum mag built in, which is just insane. And the most insane part of that also is the reload time without sleight of hand. I mean, you could see it from the gameplay earlier. It's just deadly. It's like there's not, I don't know why it's coded like this. This weapon does seem a little bit overpowered in that regard, but I guess, you know, that's the best strength strength of this weapon. You don't need anything to, unlike the Ram, where I like to run with different ammos and perks, you don't need to touch either of that for this new weapon because the 100 round magazine, the fast reload deals with that itself. So as far as my last two attachments, I go in with the stippled grip tape to also help speed up my weapon, more ADS speed and sprint to fire speed. If you are having trouble with the recoil, once again, like I said, you could mix this up to rubberized grip tape, but personally, you know, this is for an all-in sort of, not rushing class it up, but a speed up LMG class it up. It's basically like a drum mag rush. I guess it's rushing for an LMG drum mag setup. So I like the stippled grip tape. And then as far as to close out the class setup, I go with the 5MW laser, which gives you hip fire accuracy, which is nice because this thing, it is kind of slow to ADS. It's not slow to get your gun up and start firing, but because of all these negatives and the cons on the other attachments that we got, it is kind of slow to get your ADS sometimes. But the hip fire accuracy is actually pretty strong on this weapon, and especially when you have 100 bullets, you don't really have to worry about missing shots. And then the sprint to fire speed is also very, very helpful there. So that's what we rock with as far as the 5MW laser to complete this class setup. But really good setup. I've been experimenting quite a bit with the Holger. I find that this weapon does have a tad bit of recoil, but if you take the strengths, and the biggest strength is the free drum mag, and use this weapon built like this, I find it can be a lot of fun and a very effective weapon in this game. Once again, there's multiple different ways you could take this class setup and do, you know, different setups with it. I mean, that's the whole thing with this game, is you can build up different setups and different weapons and classes in different ways. But for me personally, as of right now, after this patch 1.11 and after patch 110 season 1 where this was added, this is the setup that I've been liking the most on this thing. It's not made to play like a traditional LMG. This is made for more of your regular 6v6, 10v10 scenarios, and the best thing is take advantage of that large magazine size and also try to remain as accurate as you can while dealing with the negatives of this weapon, which will probably be the recoil. Thanks for watching. Drop a like on this video if you guys could. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and not already subscribed. I'll catch you on the next one, and leave 26 down in the comment section down below. If you made it to the end of the video, leave a 26 down in the comments for the Holger-26. I'd appreciate that. Drop a like, and I'm out. Peace.